There are ways to make global changes to the software, and by global changes I mean changes that every time you open up your software, that those settings are going to be applied each and every time. The general options box is located in the tools from your file menu, tools, general options. And you'll see that there's a bunch of different tabs available here, so I'm going to take some time and go through each one to show you what they do and how they work. In the environment tab, you have the units. This is the units that like display on your ruler and some inside your properties box. Right now it's set at metric, and so you can see my ruler is set in millimeters. If I wanted, I could change that to inches and hit OK. And you can see here that it's now displaying in inches. So that's it's one of them. Default style, this is always set at normal unless you change it. Basically, a little caution here: if you do change this, every time that you open your software, it's going to bring up your selection. So basically, this lets you select any of the style sheets that are utilized like in the Save to Sew option. The difference with doing it this way is if you come in and you select Piqué Knit I Digitized, what that will do is as you're creating a fill stitch or a satin stitch, it's automatically going to apply the compensation values and underlay settings as you're digitizing the design. And the only word of caution is that, you know, if you bring in a new design and let's say it wasn't going to be done on that piqué, it will still create the settings. You know, it'll automatically adjust your design according to that fabric type. So as you're getting started, it's best to utilize normal and use the Save to Sew. But for once you get going and you get familiar with the software, I use it when I digitize designs. I come in here and I select the type of fabric I am going to digitize the design for, and then I start digitizing it and have it adjust as I'm digitizing. But to begin with, you might want to keep this at normal. You have a default thread chart. What this is your default thread chart for when you're using your colors down here at the bottom. Right now it's default at the Floriani polyester. You do have an option here to auto match thread colors on loading, so if you brought in a design that was utilizing another brand's thread, if you have this checked, it'll automatically convert those to the closest Floriani polyester colors. So it's pretty handy, especially if you're using just the Floriani polyester thread. The next tab over here is your machine tab, and the options available here is if you have this checked, it'll activate a trim if the stitch is longer than, in this case, 30 millimeters. You have the ability to, you know, adjust this as well. So this is just saying if checked, it'll activate a trim if a stitch is longer than whatever you specify here. It's very handy because you don't want too long of a stitch. Split up jumps longer than, if there's a couple jumps that go in a row, you can split it up to whatever the specified amount. So every 12 millimeters it would split it up. Remove stitches shorter than. This is a very handy. I highly recommend having this checked. This is saying that if there is anywhere in the design that there is a stitch that's 0.2 millimeters apart, it's going to automatically delete that stitch. You don't want stitches to be 2 millimeters apart from each other. That's way too close. 0.2 millimeters is, if you had a series of those, it would actually, you know, cause a lot of problems with the machine. Thread breaks, needle breaks possibly. So I highly recommend having at least 0.2. Sometimes I use 0.4. You can't go too big because your tie-in and tie-off stitches tend to be around like a 0.4. So then you have your combined jump stitches when reading. That's just if there's a series of jump stitches, it will combine them when you're loading the design in. frame out selection. This is typically used for applique or tackle twill. You're just setting the default. So if you were in your software and you were wanting to end a object with a frame out, if you selected it by default, it would put it at top because that's what's selected right now. And what that means is after you do that one element, you're going to have the ability to hit start, and your hoop will move out towards you, where you can put your applique down. And when you hit start again, that hoop will go back in, and it will be right in the location where you left off. So it's a very handy tool, and you can choose it to go to the bottom, to go to the left, or move to the right for your frame out option. You do have the bore movement when loading or saving. If you have that selected and you have a boring machine, you can see here that you have the options for these various machines that have a boring device, and you can select that setting right there. The grid. We saw it a little bit earlier in a different lesson, but you have the option of setting up your grid, making it, you can put it at 0.2 here, let's say, and it's going to change it here because I maintain aspect ratio. So basically, whatever I set this to, every time that I click on this grid icon, it's going to apply these settings. So you set it up how you want it, and it'll automatically open up to that every time, and you can always go back in and change it if you need to, pretty quick and easily. The digitizing, we have a bunch of different digitizing modes available in the software. Default is your simple draw mode, and this is the easiest. This is the one that I tend to use. Basically, what it does is whenever you're digitizing, you left click to go around. If you hold down control, it's going to create a curve. This is your simple draw mode. If I go in and change that to, let's say, Bezier functions differently. And you can see next to that little plus symbol, there's a different icon. You left click, but instead of holding down control, you click and drag to create your curve. I find that this takes longer to create the same shape, so I like that the simple draw a little bit better. Let's go ahead and go to the last option that was available for your drawing or your digitizing mode, and that was freehand. Freehand is basically, you can see on a pen, if you use a pen tablet, you just click and drag, and everywhere that you go here, when you let go and then right click, it's going to apply that. So those are the different modes. I like to use the simple draw function. I find it to be the easiest. Now there's another sections in here of your modes for utilizing the complex fill, and a mode for utilizing your satin stitches. And this is by default you always have it at standard, but if you do make a change to advanced mode, every time you're using complex fill you will be in the advanced mode. Basically the difference between standard and advanced for both the complex fill and the satin is standard mode. Whenever you create a complex fill, you right click, it's automatically going to create your start point, your end point, and put in your angle line. And the angle line that it puts in for your fill stitch is based off of this setting. So if I had it set at 0, every time I create a complex fill, it's always going to put every angle at 0. And it's automatically going to choose the start points and end points for me. Same thing with the satin. If you have it in standard mode, you create your satin stitch, it's automatically going to apply the start point and end point for you. This is very helpful for beginning digitizers. More advanced digitizers have a tendency to enjoy the advanced level. I'm going to go ahead and show you in standard mode really quick how this functions. So I'm going to go to the fill stitch. There are lessons for this, but just to give you a quick guide, you can see that I plotted it. I right clicked and it automatically filled it in with stitches. And you can see it actually put my start point here, it put my end point here, and it put that angle at 0 because that was what was selected in my general options. Let's go to a satin stitch. I'll create a little satin stitch here. When I right click, you'll see it automatically put in a start point there, an end point there. So I'll just show you really quick the difference in advanced mode. Tools, general options, digitizing, advanced, and advanced. You can have advanced mode for just the fill and use standard for the satin if you want, but I'll just show you the advanced mode now. So when I go to create basically that same structure, when I right click to close it, you can see it brings up an angle line where I can go in and I can adjust the angle to what I want before it's going to apply the stitches. And if I right click, the next option I get is where do I want it to start. It would have put it right here, but let's say I really wanted it there, so I can click right there, and you can see how my icon changed to a red dot now, meaning okay, now you're ready to do the stop point. So let's say I wanted it to stop right, it's suggesting right here, but let's say I wanted it to stop right here, and then it actually will create the stitches. And let's go to a satin. Right click and you see that it didn't apply the stitches. It has that little green symbol saying where do you want it to start. Well, let's say that I had another element here that ended right here, so I want it to start right here. And let's say that I have another object over here that starts up right here. Well, then I want to end this one right there. So it allows you to go in and set it to where you want it to be as you're digitizing the element. So I tend to use the advanced mode. I like to control where it starts, ends, and I like to control the angle lines, my stitches as I'm going. So just wanted to show you the difference between the two of those. Then we have the drawing tab, and the drawing tab is basically what color an object is going to appear when you select it. As you can see, when I select an object right now with the selection tool, you can see that it has this kind of a turquoisey color applied to it. So tools, general options. Let's say that was kind of hard to see. I wanted to change it. Let's say I wanted it to be a little bit more green. I select OK. You can see that it changed it. So it's just changing your highlight color. There are times when you're working with a particular design that it's hard to see the selected object. Let's say you had this design in here, let's say that actually used that color. Well, it'd be hard to see what was actually selected. So you can change that color, the highlight color. Then we have the auto-based function. The auto-based is that we showed earlier in a tutorial. It creates a border stitch around the entire design, and that's utilized at the beginning. It sews it out before it sews the design. It's used to tack the stabilizer and the fabric together with the stitch, and it's just a kind of a loose stitch, but it keeps the fabric from shifting when you start doing the regular embroidery. And then once you're done doing the embroidery, you just snip that stitch and it unravels, so you can take it all the way off. So it's kind of a handy feature, and these are the settings for that. Right now it's going to add a crosshair to the baste, and you have a stitch length of 6 millimeters, so it's going to be a 6 millimeter in length run stitch going around the entire structure. And then you have the ability to set the outer edge of how much it's going to be, the design will be in, and how much spacing between it and the actual design. So you can set those parameters right here. And so right now you can see what the settings are. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. I'll just show you really quick the auto-based feature and how it works. First thing you have to do is you have to select the entire design. There's a few different ways. You can see it's all selected now. When I hit auto based, you can see that it just came in and created that basting stitch. So it's kind of a neat little little feature. It comes in very handy as well. It really helps to keep the fabric attached to the stabilizer at the beginning to minimize the amount of pushing and pulling that's going to go on as it sews out this design. So you'll want to play around in the Tools General Options section. Just remember that any change you make, it's automatically going to apply those settings each and every time you open up a design. So if you ever find that you're opening it up and it's inches and you want it to be metric, you can come to the Tools General Options, change the units of measure to metric, and then every time you open up a new design it's going to be in metric. So play around with it to learn all the different features available in the general options to be able to apply global settings.